first time I noticed something wrong. It wasn't anything dramatic, just a small shift, a hesitation. I was reaching for the kettle when I realized it was already in my hand. I don't remember grabbing it. I don't remember standing. 1 second, I was still seated, and the next, I was in the middle of a task I hadn't begun yet. I told myself I was tired, distracted, sleep-deprived. But then it kept happening. I'd find books open to the page I was about to read. The bathroom light already on before I walked in. One afternoon, I opened the front door to get a delivery and saw my coat on the hook, wet. I hadn't gone out all day, and it hadn't rained. Not yet. That night, I woke up with a sore throat, a faint ringing in my ears, and the distinct memory of someone humming in the next room. I live alone. The air smelled off, like static. I walked through the apartment. Nothing was disturbed. But the mirror in the hallway was fogged, as if someone had been standing there, breathing, watching. I pressed my palm against it. It was cold, but it gave slightly, like something on the other side had just stepped back. I stopped using that hallway light. I started leaving the bathroom door half open, not to feel safer, but to know if someone ever closed it. I began writing down small things: what time I woke, what shirt I wore, what I planned to do next. But the list never quite matched what happened. Every page felt one step behind, or ahead. I couldn't tell which. One evening, I was brushing my teeth and glanced up. My reflection blinked a second late. Not slow, just delayed, as if it had waited to be sure I was watching. And when I leaned in, it leaned slightly further, just a fraction, but not mine. I turned away, fast. The toothbrush dropped. My mouth was full of copper. I spat. Red. I hadn't bitten anything. I hadn't coughed. But I bled. Just enough to mark the sink. Just enough to prove something had changed. That night, I dreamt I was standing at the foot of my own bed, watching myself sleep. And the version of me in bed looked calm, at peace, like they didn't know someone else had already taken their place. I started recording myself, not out loud, just small videos, 10 seconds, me talking about what I was about to do. Proof, a tether. But even those didn't help. Some mornings, the video would show me speaking words I never remembered planning. My tone softer, my eyes more tired. I watched one on loop. In it, I smiled, something I hadn't done in weeks, and said, "You're almost ready." I didn't know who I was talking to. I didn't know which version of me had filmed it. I replayed it until the smile felt like a threat. The next night, I entered the hallway and saw myself leave it. Not a mirror, not a shadow, just me, same clothes, same pace, stepping into the room I had just left, as if we were swapping places without ever acknowledging each other. I froze, turned around. Nothing. No one. But the feeling lingered, like I had just been handed off to a shift change I hadn't signed up for. That morning, the coffee was already made when I woke. steam still rising, my cup, my brand, but I hadn't left the bed yet. And the news on the TV, always muted, was already showing a story I had dreamt about the night before. Word for word, even the anchor's tie. I didn't eat. I didn't touch anything. I sat still and tried to memorize the feeling of my own skin, the sound of my breathing. Anything I could hold onto that still felt mine. But even that began to shift. I'd hear my voice, not just in memory, but out loud, whispering from the next room, repeating phrases I was only just starting to think. Once I said aloud, I should open the window, and a voice, not an echo, not imagination, answered, "You already did." The window was cracked, just slightly, enough for air, enough for a shadow to slip out if it wanted. That night, I dreamt I was speaking to someone who looked like me, but didn't blink. I asked who they were. They said, "The version of you that didn't survive the decision you haven't made yet." Then they tilted their head slowly, like a cat watching itself in water. And I asked again, "Am I dreaming?" They smiled my smile and said, "No, but I am. You just haven't woken up yet." People started acting strange around me. Not strangers, people I knew. My sister called and asked if I had fun at the bookstore that afternoon. I hadn't left the apartment all day. I told her that. She hesitated, said, "But you were wearing the green jacket. The one Mom gave you. You waved at me. You smiled." "I don't own that jacket anymore. I threw it away after the funeral." That night, a friend texted, confused, "Did you leave already? You were just here." I didn't reply. I hadn't seen them in weeks. The next morning, the barista at the coffee shop thanked me for yesterday's tip. I hadn't been there in 3 days. My hand shook when I signed the receipt. I looked up. She smiled like everything was normal, like I had always been someone who smiled. But I don't smile like that. Not anymore. I stopped leaving the apartment. I unplugged everything, covered the mirrors, sat in the dark, and tried to remember the feeling of being alone. But even then, I caught glimpses. A shape moving past the corner of my vision, a door that creaked open when I had just closed it. A reflection in a black screen turning its head slower than I did. I told myself I was unraveling, that it was sleep, grief, memory. But something deeper knew better. I stopped using my name. I stopped speaking out loud. I was afraid it would hear me and reply. One night, I stood in the hallway and heard footsteps. My own, slow, bare, dragging across the floor toward me. I didn't run. I didn't move, but I felt something pass through. Not air, not heat, just weight, like something had stepped into me. And I no longer remembered what it felt like before that. The next morning, my phone had a photo in the camera roll. I hadn't taken it. It was of me sleeping, except I don't sleep on my side. And the window behind me was open, wide. I checked the locks. All sealed. I checked the timestamp. 2:43 a.m. I checked the reflection in the glass. there was someone else standing in the frame, out of focus, just enough to not be sure, just enough to be afraid. I asked myself, quietly, what if I was never supposed to wake up from that dream? What if that thing that looked like me had been slowly pushing me out, not to hurt me, not to kill me, but to make space? Because somewhere along the line, I had stopped being the version that fit, and now I was just haunting the shell I used to live in. I stopped fighting it, not because I understood it, not because I forgave it, but because the effort of holding myself inside this skin had started to fray at the edges. My voice no longer sounded right. My movements felt secondhand. I caught myself writing in a hand that wasn't mine, replying to texts I hadn't read, saying things before I thought them, and worse, sometimes I watched it happen, like a passenger in a house with no doors. One night, I entered the bedroom and found the mirror gone. The wall was smooth, empty, but I could still feel it, still see the shimmer of my shape in the outline it had left behind. And standing there, already waiting, was me. Not a reflection, not an echo, just me, breathing evenly, calm, dressed in what I used to wear before everything turned dim. The other me smiled, not a grin, not malicious, just soft, familiar, and stepped forward. I didn't move. I couldn't. The moment stretched, like it was waiting for me to name it. But I didn't. I just watched as it raised one hand, touched my face gently, and whispered, "Thank you." Then it passed through me, not into me, through, as if I was a door it had left ajar years ago. And suddenly, I was no longer in the room. I was behind it, not inside the house, but in the spaces between the walls, watching, forgotten, but content, because it had taken my name, my voice, my place, and used them with grace, because it looked more like me than I ever had, and I, in turn, became the thing that flickers in the reflection, the breath behind the glass, the shape that never quite matches the shadow. I am not angry. I am not gone. I am what's left when something else decides to stay. And now, when the lights flicker, or you feel watched in an empty room, or you catch a glimpse of yourself doing something you hadn't meant to do yet, maybe it's me. Or maybe it's already you.